everyone, this week we'll be making 2 blocks. We'll be making Give It a Shake and Feels Like Socks. And we also have a little bonus pattern to show you how to turn your presents into pockets. Let's get started. I'm starting with the Give It a Shake block, and I've got my stripe 1 colour, stripe 2 colour, bow colour, background, and I've also got my 4mm hook, my scissors and 1 stitch marker. I'm starting with the stripe 1 colour, and this time we're working backwards and forwards in rows. I'm going to start with a slip knot, and this is the same as we did last week for the granny square, and pop that on my hook, and I'm going to chain 22. And you want to make sure that your chains aren't too tight, because we're going to work back along the chain with our stitches, and if the chain is too tight, it makes the stitches difficult to work. It will also make your edge tight and distort the block. So that's 19, 20, 21, 22. And remember, if you're counting your chains, you are not counting the loop on the hook. You are only counting the V shape that is below the hook. To start the row, I am going to treble crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So counting below the hook, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to make my first treble crochet into this 4th chain. So yarn over, I'm going to put my hook in, so I have 2 loops of the chain on the top of my hook and 1 loop of the chain underneath. Pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And this counts as 2 treble crochet. So into this chain, and this is called the foundation chain, I've made my first treble crochet, and the skipped chains count as a treble crochet as well. So I now have 2 treble crochet on my foundation chain. I'm going to make 18 more treble crochet along my foundation chain, so I will have 20 treble crochet in total, including these turning chains that count as my first treble. That's 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. That's row 1 complete. For row 2, I'm going to start by chaining 2, and then I'm going to turn. These 2 chains count as my first treble, so I'm going to skip this stitch at the bottom of the 2 chains and work into the next one, and I'm going to make 19 treble crochet across the row. 18, 19, and if you remember last week when we were doing the background rows, the 20th stitch is into the top of the turning chain, so this is the one that's easy to miss. So I'm just going to make my 20th stitch into the top of that turning chain. And there's my first stripe. I can snip this colour off now, and I'm leaving a tail to sew in later. Now to change to the second stripe colour, I'm just going to take a loop of the new colour and pop my hook into the finishing loop of my last stitch and pull that loop through. Pull that tight, and now I'm ready to make my next row. So I'm going to chain 2, turn, and that counts as my first treble again. So I'm going to skip that stitch at the bottom and make 19 more trebles across the row. And that's 20 stitches. And now 2 chains and turn. And this counts as the first stitch again, so I'm just going to ignore that stitch at the bottom and work into the next one. So I'm going to finish this row using the pink, and then I'm going to repeat these 2 rows 3 more times in duck egg, in pink, and then in duck egg again. And that will complete the present section of the block. So I'm at the end of the row, and before I move on, I'm just going to sew in these tails, and it's a really good idea to keep up with your tails as you go because it's going to save you a big job at the end. I've sewn my tails in along the side. I've left this first tail in place, not sewn in, because we're going to be working into the foundation chain later, and this tail will just help you to identify where to work. So I'm just going to leave that one for now. So now it's time to add the bow, and I'm going to join the bow colour and work the bow in the same way as we did last week. So I'm going to pull up a loop of my bow colour, and in the same way as last week when we had 20 stitches along the edge of the granny square and we worked the bow stitches into those, this time we've got 20 stitches along the edge of our stripe block, and we're going to work our bow row into those 20 stitches. So I'll just give you a little refresh of row 1. We start with a chain 1 and turn, and this chain doesn't count as a stitch. 1 double crochet into the first stitch of the row and then into the next 9 stitches. So we have 10 in total. So that's 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then just the same as before. So we've got our 20 chains and 10 stitches along the top edge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's my 20 chains, and then 10 double crochet into the remaining 10 stitches. 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, and then the 10th stitch into that sneaky 2 chain that likes to hide. So into the top of that second chain. And that's the first row of my bow, and you're now going to work rows 2, 3 and 4 in exactly the same way as you did last week. I've completed the bow now and cut the yarn, but I haven't fastened off because I'm going to continue from here with the background rows in the same way as we did last week. If you need a little refresher on how to make the bows, you can watch week 1 because this is exactly the same as that. I'm going to add the background rows now. And again, this is exactly the same as we did last week. So if you need a little refresher for that as well, then the week 1 video is the place to go. I'm coming to the edge of the second row of the background rows now. And I'm going to add the 3 edging rounds now. The first round this time is very slightly different, but rounds 2 and 3 are exactly the same as we did last week. So I'll show you round 1. We start with a chain 1 as we did last week, and this doesn't count as a stitch. So I'm now going to make 19 double crochet along the top edge of my block. So that's 19, and then the 20th stitch is going to go into the top of that 2 chain, and then 2 chain and another double crochet in that same stitch to turn the corner. So this is exactly the same as last week. And I'm now going to make 26 stitches along this edge. And the same as last week, this is 2 stitches at the end of a treble crochet row and 1 stitch at the end of a double crochet row. So I've already got 1 stitch at the end of this treble crochet row, so I'm going to make 1 more. So that's the first of our 26. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm just putting 1 double crochet at the top of the stitch and 1 double crochet around the post of the stitch. So it's the same as last week, but instead we're doing it at the end of the treble crochet rows instead of into the granny square. That's 24, 25 and 26. So I've got 1 in the corner, 26 along the side, and the 28th stitch is going to go into the foundation chain. So rather than going around the post of the stitch here, it's going to go into the bottom of the chain just here. So I'm going to pop my hook in and make the last stitch of the side there, and then I'm going to chain 2 and turn the corner with another double crochet in that same foundation chain. And now I'm going to carry on working into the foundation chains. So that's 18 double crochet into the foundation chains. So that's 16, 17, 18 double crochet into the foundation chains. So I have 1 in the corner and 18, that's 19 double crochet. And the 20th to finish the side is going to go into the bottom of the turning chains. So these are the 2 turning chains, and it's going to go into the bottom one. So I'm just going to pop my hook into that bottom chain and make a double crochet, and then 2 chains to turn the corner and 1 double crochet in that same chain. And now I'm going to work along this long side. So I've got 1 stitch in the corner. I'm going to make 26 stitches along this edge, and then my last stitch to finish this corner to make 28. So that's 26, so I've got 1 in the corner, 26 stitches, that's 27, and I'm just going to finish this round with 1 more double crochet in that first stitch, and then 2 chains and slip stitch under both loops of that first double crochet to join. And the next 2 rounds, so rounds 2 and 3 of the edging rounds, are exactly the same as we did last week. I've added rounds 2 and 3 of edging. So here is my Give It a Shake block, all complete. And the pattern will tell you what other colour combinations you need to make. So we have a little bonus pattern for you, and that is to show you how to turn your blocks into pockets. You could make one and hide it in your blanket somewhere to pop little treats in, or if you're feeling really adventurous, you could make lots of them and turn your blanket into an advent calendar. It's really easy to do. I'll show you how. To make a pocket, make your block up to the end of the bow, so the point where you finish the bow, and this will work for any of the square presents. I've sewn my tails in, and now you need a backing for the pocket, and this is made using the background colour, and this is done in the same way as the present. So it starts with 22 chains and then treble crochet in the 4th chain from the hook, and then 18 treble crochet along the row. And this is just 14 rows without the colour changes, so exactly the same as this, but 14 rows and no colour changes. I haven't fastened off because I'm going to continue from this point with the edging rounds. And what we're going to do is to line the 2 up with the present on top of the backing so that the ends of the rows line up. And if you have a look at the edge here, you'll see that the 2 rows of treble crochet in this first stripe line up with the 2 rows of treble crochet in the backing piece. And to help everything line up and stay in place, I'm just going to pop some stitch markers in. So I'm going to pop a stitch marker through that first foundation chain in both pieces, and that's where we're going to make the corner. And then I'm just going to line up the rows and then line up 2 rows for the bow. So we have our 2 rows sticking up above the bow. And on the block we just made, this was the row that anchored the bow down and the row above it. But this time, this is going to be the backing for our pocket. So I'm just going to pop another stitch marker in there. Oops. And into the top of that row. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So in the bottom corner of both pieces, and then just line those rows up, pop another stitch marker in. And now I'm going to carry on working the edging rounds in exactly the same way as we did for the block. So that's a chain one that doesn't count as a stitch, and then 19 double crochet along the top edge. So that's 17, 18, 19, and then we're going to make a corner as we did before in that last stitch. So that's a double crochet, 2 chain and a double crochet, and then 1 more double crochet at the end of that first row. And then 2 double crochet at the end of the next row. And now we're going to carry on in exactly the same way as the block we've just made, except this time we're going to work through both thicknesses, so through the present and through the backing piece. So I'm just going to take that first stitch marker out. I'm going to work through the present and through the corresponding stitch in the backing piece. So I'm just working down and that's joining the 2 pieces together. So that's into the top of the stitch, and then the next one is round the post of the stitch in both pieces, and then through the top of the stitch in the piece below, and round the post of the stitch and the post of the stitch in the row below, and so on. I'm getting close to the corners, so I'm just going to take that stitch marker out. This is the last couple of rows, so around the post and then in the top of the stitch, and as we did when we made the last block, I'm going to work the last stitch of the side into that foundation chain. So into the foundation chain on the present and into the foundation chain on the little backing piece as well. I'm going to make my corner in there, 2 chain and 1 more double crochet. So that's joining the 2 pieces together. And now I'm going to just continue all the way around in the same way as I made the last block, but through both thicknesses. So along the bottom, up the side, and then finish this edge, join as you did before, and then work the remaining 2 edging rounds. And here's my completed pocket. So I've got my backing piece joined all the way round, and then I've completed the pocket with the additional 2 edging rounds in the same way as I've done on my other blocks. For Feels Like Socks, I've got my 2 stripe colours, I've got my bow colour and my background colour, and as always I've got my 4mm hook, my scissors and my stitch marker. Okay, let's dive into this block. I'm starting this block in the same way that I started Give It a Shake, and that is with a chain. Except this time I'm going to chain 30. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And exactly the same as the block we've just made, I'm going to treble crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that counts as 2 treble crochet, and I'm now going to make 26 more treble crochet along my foundation chain. So I'm working along my foundation chain, and remember, if you're new to reading patterns, have a look at the pattern while you're watching the video, because the instructions will start to make sense. Nearly there now. And from now on, these stripes are worked in exactly the same way as Give It a Shake, except instead of having 20 stitches in a row, you have 28 stitches in a row. So I'm going to make 3 stripes now, and that's 2 rows in red, 2 rows in pink, and then 2 rows in red. Here we go. Here are my 3 stripes, done in the same way as Give It a Shake, except with the 28 stitches in the row instead of the 20. I'm just going to sew in these tails to get them out of the way, and then we're going to move on to the bow. So I'm going to change to my bow colour. And the only difference this time is we've got 28 stitches instead of 20. So instead of making a double crochet in 10 stitches, chaining 20, and then double crochet in 10 stitches, we're going to double crochet in 14 stitches, chain 20, and then double crochet in 14 stitches, and that will put the bow right in the center of your present. So we start as always with a chain 1, turn, and the chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, so I'm going to make 14 double crochet starting in that first stitch. (13), 14, and now I'm going to chain 20, 18, 19, and that's 20, and now 14 double crochet to complete the row. That's 11, 12, 13, 14. So for row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and then 14 double crochet, and then I'm going to work along the chain in the usual way. So that's 1 double crochet followed by 7 treble crochet, and then 2 double crochet, takes you to the middle of the bow, and then repeat that sequence in reverse. So that's 5, 6, 7, and then my 2 double crochet in the middle. Oops, lost my stitch. There we go. And then 2 double crochet, followed by 7 treble crochet, and then 1 double crochet. So this is exactly the same as we've done on the other blocks. And I'm going to finish the row with 14 double crochet. And now row 3, so chain 1 and turn, and 1 double crochet in the next 14 stitches. That's 12, 13, 14, and this time I'm going to put my stitch marker into that 14th stitch, so we know which stitch to work on in the next row, and then repeat my sequence of bow stitches. So that's my double followed by 7 trebles, 4 doubles, 7 trebles, and 1 double at the end. And now to finish the row, 14 double crochet. That's row 3, and then row 4, chain 1 and turn, and then 13 double crochet. So in the last block we made 9 double crochet and then made our long bow stitches in the 10th stitch. This time we're going to make 13 double crochet and make the long stitch in the 14th stitch. That's 11, 12, 13. So in the 14th stitch, I'm going to pull up my loop, flatten down my bow, yarn across the center of the bow, and insert my hook into that 14th stitch, pull up a loop, so that's 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 3 loops. And then I'm going to pop my hook into the stitch with the stitch marker, pull up a loop, and then just make my long stitch in the 15th stitch. And now complete the row with 13 more double crochet stitches. There we go. I'm going to snip the yarn, but not fasten off, because again we're going to carry on with our background rounds from here. Give the bow a little adjust. I've got my background colour now, and I'm going to add the 2 background rows. The first one is the one that anchors the bow stitches down, and this is exactly the same as we did in the Give It a Shake block, but this time we're going to make 10 treble crochet before our anchoring stitch, and then 6 treble crochet, our second anchoring stitch, and then 10 double crochet to finish the row, and this gives us our 28 stitches. So start with a 2 chain, and as usual this counts as a stitch. So that's 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, and then through the 3rd stitch from the center, so that's 1, 2, 3, and the next stitch, and now my 6 treble crochet, and this is the same as the other blocks that we've made so far. The only bit that's different is the additional stitches on each end of the rows. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then through the 3rd stitch from the center, so that's 1, 2, 3, and the next stitch, and then finish the row with 10 treble crochet. 8, 9, and 10. I'm just finishing my 2nd row of the background colour. That's my 28th stitch. And now it's time to add the edging rounds, and this is exactly the same way as we did with the Give It a Shake block, except this time we're going to work the long side first and then the short side. So I'm going to start with a chain 1 and a turn, and I'm going to make 27 double crochet along this top edge. So that's 27, and then my 28th stitch is going to go into the top of that 2 chain. So now I have 28 stitches along the long side, and this is the same as the long side of our other blocks. Going to chain 2 and then double crochet in that same stitch to turn the corner. And I'm now going to make 19 double crochet along this edge. So that's 18, and then the 19th in this foundation chain. So again, this is the same as we did on the Give It a Shake block. So that's 18, and my 19th stitch into that 1st foundation chain. So now I have 1 in the corner, 18 along the side, and 1 in the foundation chain, so that's 20. So that's the same stitch count as the short sides on our other blocks. Then I'm going to 2 chain, make another double crochet into that same foundation chain to turn the corner, and then I'm going to work along the long side, so that's 27 stitches, and the last one is going to go into that 1st turning chain, so that will give us 28 on this side. And I'm working those stitches into the foundation chain, nearly there. That's 26, 27, and then my 28th stitch into the bottom of that turning 2 chain, and then 2 chains and double crochet into the same stitch to turn the corner. So we've got 1 here, so I'm going to make 19 more stitches, double crochet stitches, with the last one in that same stitch as our first double crochet. So that's 19 and then 20. So I've got 1 in the corner, 18 stitches, and then 1 in the last stitch to finish the corner, so that's 20, and 2 chains and slip stitch under both loops of the first double crochet to finish round 1. So now it's round 2, and I'm going to 2 chain, and this counts as a stitch in the usual way. And now I'm going to make 28 treble crochet stitches along this long side. And that's 28. So I have my 2 chains that count as my first treble, 28 trebles, that's 29. And then I'm going to make a corner, so another one in this corner space. That's 30 treble crochet along the side, and then 2 chains and treble crochet in the same space to form the corner. And then I'm going to make 20 treble crochet along this short side. So that's 20. So I've got 1 in the corner space, 20 stitches, that's 21, and I'm going to finish this side with another treble crochet in the corner space, so that's 22 stitches, 2 chains and turn the corner, so treble crochet in the same space, and then I'm going to finish this round in the same way, so that I've got 30 stitches along the long side and 22 stitches along the short side. And I'll catch up with you when I get to this corner. I'm back to the corner now, and I'm going to make my 24th stitch of the side in that corner space. So now my short sides have got 24 stitches. This long side has 32 stitches, but if you remember back to this first round, we only had 30 stitches along this top edge. So I'm going to finish this edge to make it up to 32 stitches. So 2 chains, 1 in the corner, so that's 31, 1 in the first stitch, so that's my 32, and then slip stitch under both loops of the first double crochet to finish the round. And I'm going to fasten this off. And here it is, our Feels Like Socks block all complete. I'm going to bring them all in now. So we've got our Give It a Shake, we've got our bonus pattern to turn presents into pockets, and here is Feels Like Socks. I really hope you've enjoyed this week, and I'll see you next time for week 3.